Hello, my dear seekers and darklings. I am very glad to be here again, and I hope to publish this very quickly. Let's talk about this full moon. I want to start this conversation about the full moon in Pisces by saying that this is a proper time to manifest, that this isn't a bad time to manifest, that eclipses don't mean that the light is bent or broken or any fatalistic Neoplatonist lie that New Agers are saying over there, like all over the social media, because I've seen and I've heard some things, and I'm like, no. The main difference between the energy of an eclipse and the energy of a regular full moon or a regular new moon is that the same themes that you would see either have a stronger sense of direction, which can be very favorable in many different circumstances, or that the energy is just stronger. It's more intense. So, if you are afraid of fire, then you probably shouldn't be in the kitchen. But if you want and need the heat, then you should be in the kitchen and you should be cooking. Okay? Don't let weak or mediocre people scare you off. So, that being said, remember that all full moons are three things. All full moons are endings of something. They are times of revelation. The sun is illuminating something on the other side of the zodiac wheel. And last but absolutely not least, all full moons are choices. We are pushed to make choices between whatever the themes of where the sun is at and whatever the themes of where the moon is at. In this specific case, our choices normally would be between letting ourselves be guided not only by emotion, but emotions that we cannot fully understand or put into words, that both come from within and from without, that come from source, come from spirit, come from creativity, come from the things that we already have in our heads in terms of creative ideas, in terms of art, in terms of, properly speaking, and now I will use this word, the subconscious, because the subconscious, what it's full of is symbolism. That's basically the part of our minds where we put away all our, metaphors and our symbols and our omens and what they mean and all of that. And interpreting things like letters and logos and so on. But this one is special. This one is special because not only do we have the opposition, we have to make the choice between the Pisces things and the Virgo things while guiding those choices, guiding them by the sheer amount of information or the sheer amount of things that we are doing with our hands. I don't know about you, but I have been super, super, super antsy this entire time that Jupiter has been transiting Gemini. Jupiter does not like to be in Gemini. It is very, very, it is hard to focus when many planets transit Gemini, but I mean, maybe I'm biased because I have a lot of Sagittarius in my chart. I'm very Jupiterian, very ninth house heavy. But it is extra hard to concentrate when Jupiter transits Gemini. The fact that this transit of Jupiter through Gemini is also my Jupiter return definitely does not help. But, for the collective, there is nonetheless this sense of having a hard time thinking as practically and as precisely and in the organized way that Mercury in Virgo calls for or pushes for, right? When the higher mind is in full crackhead squirrel mode. It is going to be quite the challenge. And although there is not an aspect at this time between Mercury and Jupiter, Jupiter in Gemini is supposed to be the mediator between the sun and the moon. So that's one significant thing, right? That's a T square. The other significant thing is that the full moon is forming a kite, which means that all the earth signs are represented in this specific case. There's a grand dirty trine. We have the sun forming trines to both Pluto and Uranus, which is very rare. And then the last two planets that I mentioned, forming sextiles to the moon. So we have that almost anything that we try to express through our routines, through our healthcare habits, through precise, dedicated, practical use of language, we are likely to also embody, we are also likely to express it through the rest of our bodies, through our material possessions, through, and sometimes in surprising ways because Uranus is involved. I will be right back. Yes, so carrying on. So the choice is more complicated, right, than it usually would be. Normally, it would just be a choice between, do we listen to God? Do we listen to Spirit and let them guide our hands? Or do we listen to matter? Do we listen to our resources, what we have right now, what we have in front of us, the way that our bodies are working, our health conditions, our material possessions? Do we let those and our finances dictate what we can or can't do, what we will or won't do? But this time it's more complicated because we have that grand dirty trine, meaning that one thing that we do with matter, whether it's a purchase, whether it's a change in our health, especially if it's sudden and unexpected, Uranus and Taurus, it's going to change the way that we talk. It's going to change the way that we think, and it's going to change the way that we exercise power over our careers. It could start in any direction, but it's going to affect the others. That's one thing. The other thing that complicates this is our choices are, do we make changes to these areas, these material areas of life, right? Our health, our possessions, our careers, the ways that we communicate, we try to communicate with and think with precision, with organization, our daily routines. Do we try to change these things gradually, slowly, because they kind of already have a trajectory that's been going for a while? Do we just dig in to that trajectory that we already have? And this is incredibly slow for some of us, painfully slow. Or do we let go of the reins and follow our feelings, follow our emotions, our heart, and as a result also change these things, but instead of changing them gradually, following the trajectory that they're kind of already on, that works but is working slowly, potentially make big sweeping changes like a hurricane going through them in a much shorter period of time, in a way that makes much less sense to us. Ironically, while this full moon is very mercurial in that we have, significant things happening in Virgo and the centerpiece in a lot of ways is Jupiter and Gemini, right? But after I went through the transits and I went through the interactions and the shapes and whatever, there's something here about, it's like hearing a radio in your head that only you can hear, and even though a lot of the time those words don't make sense to you, repeating them out loud anyway. or letting the information as it goes through work on its own terms. And like, for example, There were several things you wanted to say, but you got to say 10, and that was all that you had the time for. Having faith that those 10 things that you managed to get in were exactly the 10 things that you needed to say, and that you didn't pick them on purpose. And that not picking them on purpose actually makes them the right 10. There's something here about having the humility to not demand that focus and ego and the I be the one that is in command, but rather the arguments of what is happening, the information that is flowing. Let that guide you, let that move you, rather than you move it. Because it very much looks like if you're trying to, for example, manifest things, right? If you're trying to do that the way that normally people teach that you're supposed to do it, with all this hyper focus, with this concentration, with all this visualization, and then writing down things. I don't know what the obsession with journaling is. Oh, write this, write that, get a piece of paper and a pen. Everything involves a piece of paper and a pen. I wonder what happened with our ancestors that couldn't read or write. I promise this is the last time that I'm going to complain about how New Agers want to do things. That's not how you manifest things during this full moon. During this full moon, you listen first. Instead of speak or think or try to do or manipulate, you stop and you listen. And you pay attention. Where's the information going? I'm working with something with my hands. What am I working on? Where is this taking me? Where are the arguments logically leading up to? Don't do this looking for what the bottom line is or for what the end result is supposed to be. Do this so you can follow along. Someone is talking to you, you get a chance to speak. Speak what is on your mind. Do the best you can with what comes in. You get interrupted or your time runs out, you can't say anything else. Have the faith that you said exactly what needed to be said, and that you did, and anything that you maybe wanted to say probably did not deserve to be said. And was not said because it was not good for you. Okay? There's something here about, manifesting things by having the emotion of where you want that to go and starting to take steps in that direction, but then kind of letting those steps take over rather than staying as the pilot the entire time. That's mainly what I'm seeing here about how to manifest things or make the most of this energy during this full moon. This is a time of closings and endings of things that we started back all the way back in 2008, because this is the last time that Pluto is going to be in the sign of Capricorn in our lifetimes. It starts around the time of this full moon, and it's going to end in November, if I remember correctly, near the second week of November. So something that I also ran into as I was going through this, against our emotion, like we're trying to relate to people in a way that's fair and cordial and whatever, but that should not be emphasized. That should not be the aim or the goal. We should trust that we can do that naturally and try to be more authentic, if need be, more competitive. If you have a tendency to be very aggressive, be more playful. If you have a tendency to be so playful or polite that people walk all over you, be more aggressive. Listen, I am giving you permission, not that you need it, but I'm giving you permission and encouragement to be more aggressive, if that is you. And trust that even being aggressive, even being assertive, even showing initiative, you will still be polite enough, cordial enough, because you're so used to being nice to people that even apparently at your most aggressive, you're still going to be nice. This is a time to trust that. But when it comes to, for example, the creative urges, the intuitive messages that are coming in, don't be surprised if a lot of it connects to things from the past. And especially and particularly the years that there's a specific range of years that I'm seeing connections to, right? So don't be surprised if certain things come up that remind you of things that you were thinking about or doing around 2017. Don't be surprised if connections are being formed. Especially in my case, it's been this one that I'm going to mention now has been something that's been coming up a lot in my dreams, which is remembering a lot of things or putting myself in the place that I was in many ways back in 2014, exactly 10 years ago. And of course, 2008, which I already mentioned, because that's kind of when we started this cycle. Uh, but similarly, when creative urges come in, especially for those of us that are artists, I'm a poet, I'm a musician. Don't be surprised if you, for example, want to listen to music that you used to listen to all the time back in 2008 and you haven't listened to maybe since 2008 or 2014 or 2017. Don't be surprised if you get reminders of art that you made around that time or things that you were working on around that time in your art. Don't be surprised if some of the new messages about this new stage of your life that you're about to start make reference to things that were happening around those 3 periods that I mentioned, right? There's something in there about that. um, Trusting that you speak enough, that speaking with precision kind of happens on its own, is going to be a big theme, especially for the next 2 weeks. Not trying to make yourself be a precise thinker, a precise talker, but trusting that you're already doing it. Even though in your head it's as if you are speaking gibberish all the time. Don't worry, it's not just you that's feeling it. It's not just you that's thinking this. We're going through it collectively. And then flip something on its head that normally we do the other way around, right? Which is let intuition and creativity provide you with the structure, the discipline, the format of how you're going to express these things, especially how you're going to express them verbally or with your hands manually. Gemini rules the hands. That's why I keep talking about hands and manual activities. And then let logic and practicality and whatever decide the content of what you're going to be expressing. Instead of doing it, like, normally we do it the other way around, right? Normally we use practicality and we use resources and whatever, are our material conditions at the time, our values, our health, whatever, to decide the format with which we express ourselves, and then we let intuition guide what it is that we're expressing. In this time, we're challenged to do the opposite, to express material, rational, practical things in a format that is decided by intuition, that is decided by feelings, that is decided by altered states of consciousness. This is a really good time for automatic writing. I know I've been receiving a lot of poetic downloads or inspirations or reminiscences. So let those flow, use them, channel them, don't repress them, don't ignore them, don't call them crazy and dismiss them. Harsh judgments from an excessively practical and materialistic mindset. Remember, I mentioned that a few minutes earlier in this same report. Let the information and the hand movements guide you, but so that you can make radical changes to your material realities rather than continuing to follow the logic with which the material realities are already moving and then still going in the direction of positive change, sure, but at an incredibly slow pace that you might not even survive. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I hope to speak to you again very soon.